Welcome to the Fabulous 413. I'm Khalees Smith.
And I'm Monte Belmonte.
Later.
Well, that's you. Yes, go ahead. Take two.
One of us is in the summer reading program, and the other one...
I'm in the Audible summer reading program, or the Libby one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's
I'm
not
reading
entirely
American
the same.
Prometheus on the drive back and forth to work.
That's a haul.
It is. It's 28 hours long.
Jesus Christ. Anyhow, later in the show, we'll celebrate Black voices coming to Barrington Stage and Pittsfield this week.
And Ersatz word nerd Ammon Shea on why the words aspirational, blue moon, and brawl were trending this week.
But we're joined in the studio by the new president and CEO of the Community Foundation of Western Mass, Megan Burke.
Megan Burke is the fifth president of the Community Foundation, which started in 1991. She began her career working on international peace and security issues at the Ford Foundation and through the United Nations.
She also lived in Nicaragua, where her work supported the emerging LGBTQ plus movement and the development of a nationwide campaign to advance human rights.
Megan Burke also led the Nobel Peace Prize-winning international campaign to ban landmines, an international network of nonprofits engaged in advancing a ban on anti-personnel landmines and cluster munitions worldwide. I'm humbled to be in your presence.
Yeah, for sure. I was about to say, I feel like I need to be doing more with my life when I read some of our guests' CVs.
So do you have a Nobel Peace Prize at home?
Well, first, thanks very much, Monte and Khalees, for having me. I do not have a Nobel Peace Prize at home, but I will give you one little quick, cool fact.
Yeah.
That when you do work for an organization that has won a Nobel Peace Prize, you get to nominate prize winners every year if you want to.
Wow.
Which is kind of a cool little perk.
That is cool.
That is really awesome.
It's better than being a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
I mean, for sure.
It's a much smaller group, I'm imagining. But it's cool because we had Ira Helfand from Northampton, who's been part of 2 Nobel Prize-winning organizations here, and now we've got you, Megan Burke.
There we go.
We should talk about your idea about cluster munitions in the Biden administration, but that's not why
Certainly
we brought
timely.
you here. We did want to talk to you about the work that the Community Foundation has been doing in the Western Mass Farm Resiliency Fund, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. For those who don't know what the Community Foundation of Western Mass is or does,
and who didn't walk past your building on their way to their cars like we did for a month before moving into the new building.
We had a little meeting earlier today at Stern Square, right next to your office there.
We were like, should we just go get her?
Pick her up and bring her to the studio.
Maybe that would scare her.
Yeah, it's a hop, skip, and a jump away from our studios here at NEPM. But I've often called the Community Foundation of Western Mass the do-good Illuminati, in the sense that it's a lot of unknown people pooling their money together for philanthropic endeavors. But what is your definition as the new president and CEO of what the Community Foundation of Western Mass is and does?
Monte, that's actually a great definition, because probably anyone who knows of the Community Foundation, that's how they think of it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm trying to do, and I think what we're all trying to do, is really dispel a lot of myths and make sure everybody knows what the Community Foundation is, and it doesn't seem quite so mysterious.
Yeah.
So the Community Foundation is literally the community foundation for all residents of Western Mass. Everyone can be a part of it, whether it's applying for grant funds as a nonprofit, applying for a scholarship when someone's a student, volunteering to be on a grant review committee or a scholarship review committee, or, of course, donating if people have the means to do that. And that can be small donations, or it can be larger fund holders who want to really, contribute significant funds to making Western Mass an even better place to live than it already is.
How much money does the Community Foundation handle?
So we have about $250 million worth of assets. That's what's sort of accumulated since 1991, and it sounds like a lot of money, and it is.
It is.
So it's a really exciting sort of treasure to be able to steward. We make about $15 million worth of grants each year, or we have in the last couple of years, which has seen a bit of an uptick because we were dealing with a COVID response. Mm-hmm. But certainly, we aim for around that level every year. And I think that can make a significant impact in our region.
You are the organization behind Valley Gives Day.
We are. Valley Gives has been discontinued.
Oh,
But it's a
But
brand that
it's
people
a-
probably remember.
Right.
It certainly is. And honestly, we still have a mission to inspire people to want to support each other, to give in their communities, neighbors helping neighbors. And the name has so much resonance in the community that we really are looking for ways to kind of resurrect that and think about how it can inspire giving.
And it was an inspirational thing. I've been lucky enough to know previous presidents and other vice presidents, Katie Allen Zobel and Kristen Lutz, who were working in that early days of the Valley Gives Day, to see how generous this area is. We were neck and neck with huge metropolitan areas, San Francisco and places like that, in regards to how many people came out to give, inspired by the notion of Valley Gives Day.
Yeah, and I actually think, I've lived in this region even prior to taking this job. I live right here in Hampden County, across the river in West Springfield, and I was certainly aware of Valley Gives. I contributed as well. I was so excited by reaching trying to reach the milestones and the goals that various nonprofits had, and I think while the exact initiative right now is in flux, I think what we saw during COVID was a direct result of what that campaign sort of inspired in people, because once again, we saw hundreds and thousands of residents of Western Mass stepping up to say, wow, this is a really tough time for people, and we're going to donate to the COVID Response Fund. And so we were able to pool resources from thousands of people, including funds that we were able to leverage from larger foundations in Eastern Mass and public sector money to address food security issues and all kinds of issues during COVID. So I think the inspiration to give lives on. And we're definitely going to continue to think about ways to tap that spirit that people have.
Yeah, if you missed what Valley Gives Day was, it was a one-day coordinated effort where hundreds, literally, of nonprofits in the area were telling you what they were all about and asking for money on the same day. And nothing quite inspires generosity like generosity.
Are you taking some of the lessons that you learned from that effort from from Valley Gives Day and applying it to your involvement with the Massachusetts Farm Resiliency Fund?
That's a great segue, Khalees. That's awesome. No, definitely. I mean, I think this is yet another place where we recognize that folks here in Western Mass, and quite frankly, all throughout Massachusetts, but this is really focused here. When they understand that they have a neighbor in need, they want to help out. And so we want to make sure that we're giving them a way to do that that's easy, and that we're reassuring them that the money's going to go where it needs to go and get there quickly and efficiently. And so we're using all the channels, the social media, getting the word out, even this conversation here today. We're working in collaboration with lots of key partners to make sure that we're not competing, that we're all kind of pulling in the same direction. And I think that's what Valley Gives was all about.
For those who haven't been following the Western Mass Farm Resiliency Fund, we learned that FEMA was not going to be able to directly support farmers. USDA has money, but it's in the form of grants. The Healy administration wanted to make something available to farmers directly that was not a loan right away. And
You meant the USDA is giving out loans.
The USDA giving out loans, exactly, not grants. Grants is what the Healy administration and United Way were hoping for. They went to United Way of Central Mass and Community Foundation of Western Mass. Tell us how those conversations began to create this fund.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, now it seems a little bit long ago, but it was really, tomorrow is the anniversary.
The 1 month anniversary.
The 1 month anniversary, right. Just 1 month. The 1 month anniversary of the first of the massive flooding, right? And I do want to kind of reiterate, I think we've all seen it's continued to rain. It's continued to be heavy, excessive rains. So as soon as, I think that was July 10, those big floods happened. Within a couple of days, in fact, I think it was the day after, I was on the phone with Governor Healy's Western Mass office. Very quickly, we were connected with Tim Garvin of the United Way of Central Mass. Early the next week, we all got on a call together, really with anyone who was interested. None of this is meant to be sort of secret Illuminati behind a curtain, but actually open to everybody to say, how should we do this? How should we get the word out? How can we work together? And I was so thrilled when Tim Garvin of the United Way of Central Mass was willing to step up and actually host and launch the fund. I think they're really well equipped to do that. And we were asked, Community Foundation of Western Mass, to really coordinate the regional advisory group that includes representatives of Western Mass to make sure that we're getting the perspectives of farmers, nonprofit farms, private philanthropy, other nonprofits that work with farms, people who are concerned about food security, and bring everybody together to think about the best way to make sure people are aware of the fund and think about how to get the funds out quickly.
Well, coming up in just a little bit, we're going to hear about how much money has come into that fund, if any of that money has gone out of that fund, and what the next phases are through the Community Foundation of Western Mass and the United Way of Central Mass with the Mass Farm Resiliency Fund, and with the new president and CEO of the Community Foundation, Megan Burke.
Later in the show, we'll also celebrate Black Voices coming to Barrington Stage in Pittsfield this week.
And Ersatz word nerd Ammon Shea on why the words aspirational, blue moon, and brawl were trending this week.
You're listening to The Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Welcome back to the Fabulous 413. I'm Monte Belmonte.
And I'm Cleve Smith.
And we are here with the president and CEO of the Community Foundation of Western Mass, the fifth president. When did you officially start?
January 18th, so I'm just past the 6-month mark.
You're no longer a newborn president of the Community Foundation of Western Mass.
I'm a toddler.
Aw. That's why you spilled your water all over the place. Megan, we were talking about the Western Mass Farm Resiliency Fund set up by the governor, coordinated by the United Way of Central Mass with the partnership of the Community Foundation of Western Mass. How much money have people of Western Mass and beyond contributed so far?
Great question. So I'm proud to announce that the Community Foundation of Western Mass just yesterday announced that we, using sort of foundation unrestricted funding, have contributed $25,000 to the fund, really to send the signal that we think this is incredibly important. We care about our farmers and we want to make sure they have the assistance they need. And with that, it has brought the total just under $250,000. So we're at $250,000, which I think is a pretty good amount of money
for less than a month.
For
sure.
in a very short time. We've had contributions, and even more than the amount of money, we've had contributions from 432 separate donors, and they represent 8 different states. So this is even beyond Massachusetts, and within Massachusetts, 157 towns. And I think that's really important because while Western Mass farmers primarily have been impacted, the food they grow feeds the entire state. And so we're really pleased that folks outside of Western Mass also think this is important. And I also want to quickly say our goal in the short term is to raise $1 million. So we have lots of room for others to join us. And this is a 2-phased approach, and we're really hoping to reach $5 million in the longer term.
How much of that money has been given out?
So to date, we have not given out any of the funds, but we do plan to to announce our plans next week to get funds into the hands of farmers this month. We want to do this through a 2-phased approach. The first phase would give a flat amount to each farmer who has been impacted, and it would be a quick, streamlined way to just get some funds immediately in their hands. And as you mentioned earlier, Monte, these will be grants. These would not have to be paid back. These would be funds to use however they need them, knowing that there may be other funds that come later through the public sector, whether it's the state funds that were approved or USDA funds that may be able to cover crop loss and other things. This is to cover things that aren't covered through those funds. And then we would plan for a second phase, most likely in the fall, which gives us more time to get more supporters to donate and contribute. And the second phase would allow us to consider the different impact that different farmers have felt. So farmers who have a greater need and less access to other funds, they would be able to get an additional amount in that second phase.
You were telling me, Megan Burke from the Community Foundation of Western Mass, that you have a weekly call with different people that are trying to figure out how to best allocate these funds.
Sure, yes. Every Monday morning, bright and early, we come together. It's myself, Tim Garvin from the United Way.
Who was a guest on the show.
Yes. Phil Corman.
Who's always a guest
on the show, so I don't even need to say where he's from.
CISA.
An underwriter of NEPM.
Yes. And we also have some government officials who join us, Commissioner Randall, the agricultural commissioner, and Kristen Aleko from the Western Mass office for Governor Healy. So it's truly a public-private partnership. We come together every week to check in where we are. This is a fund that Governor Healy launched, and she is really dedicating some staff time to really help move it forward. And then the other thing I will mention is we have a bigger group that meets every 2 weeks that is an advisory group. And that role of that group is to really help us think through the best way to get money to farmers, to help identify the farmers who need that, to get the word out about the fund. That's not an exclusive group. We welcome, it's a virtual meeting, and it includes farmers themselves, nonprofit farms, representatives from foundations like ours, nonprofits, really anyone who's interested in really helping us think through how to make this work.
Have you seen applications for the funds already, or are those just slowly starting to trickle in?
So we haven't actually released a request for applications, and I'll tell you why. We want to make this so easy for farmers that it doesn't even require an application for the first round.
Right.
We understand farmers are dealing with a lot right now. They're trying to clean up the mess from the flooding. They're trying to still run their farms in areas that haven't been damaged. This is a really busy time for farmers. And so when we think about how to make this streamlined, that's why we're talking about making a flat donation to all farms who have been impacted. And there's been a lot of efforts to identify what those farms are, and just get the money out without an application.
It's too bad because I know farmers love paperwork.
We want to
Everyone
trust
does.
them.
Who doesn't love paperwork?
Megan Burke, who is the new CEO of the Community Foundation of Western Mass, you do things, of course, other than this Western Mass Farm Resiliency Fund. And there's a couple of initiatives I want to talk about before we have to let you go. Talk about what the Equity in the 413 Western Mass Racial Equity Summit is all about.
I'd be happy to. Obviously, we've picked up on your excellent naming of the fabulous 413. So just to give that a little plug.
We didn't come up with the area code, but we'll
great
take the win.
So the Community Foundation is working with a robust set of great partners, and we're coordinating the first ever Western Mass Racial Equity Summit. It's going to be held here in Springfield. It's an all-day event on October 24th at the Sheraton. We opened ticket sales today. So there's you can go right onto our website, communityfoundation.org, click to register for this event. It's really open to everybody. And we have some really concrete goals to get the word out about how to make sure that all our workplaces are prepared and ready to welcome a diverse set of workers onto their workforce, that workers know how to find out about a diverse set of opportunities that match their interests, and really think about other ways that we can all work together to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout Western Mass.
I think we're going to have people on in anticipation of that event for sure.
Oh, for sure.
And what about Valley Creates?
So Valley Creates is our sort of signature arts and creativity program that really works to support the creative ecosystem all throughout Western Mass. And this is something that we actually started about 7 years ago, and I keep hearing that people don't know about it. And so we need to talk about it more. It's really exciting. We are supporting artists, individual artists directly, which is relatively new for us. And it's providing them with some funds to just do what they do, be creative. It's focused on artists who traditionally haven't gotten support, artists of color, rural artists, and it also works to connect them and to connect them to arts organizations so that we can have an even more flourishing arts sector in our community.
That is the new president and CEO, now a toddler, of the Community Foundation of Western Mass, Megan Burke. No more the Do-Good Illuminati. The Do-Good Illuminati unmasked. And we hope to hear more about what the Farm Resiliency Fund in particular will be doing.
We get to call them the benevolent Illuminati?
I love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, Megan Burke. Later in the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Ersatz Wertner at Ammon Shea on the way. Why the words aspirational, blue moon, and brawl were trending this week.
And up next, we'll celebrate Black Voices coming to Barrington Stage and Pittsfield this week with Associate Director of Community Engagement and DEIA Coordinator for Barrington Stage, Sharron Frazier-McClain.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Okay, so I'm here with Sharron Frazier-McClain, who is in charge of community engagement and EDI coordinator for Barrington Stage, and who is producing this weekend a celebration of Black Voices at Barrington Stage, a 3-day celebration of the Black community in the Berkshires. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Before we do too much about your event specifically, can I just hear your thoughts on the importance of having events like this at times that are not February?
Well, I will say first and foremost, the intentionality behind the initiative, Black Voices Matter, it's a year-long initiative. So there will never be anything taking place just in February. I will say the initiative started in 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement was really prominent, when all the murders were going on. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others. You know, a lot of companies and organizations were making blatant statements of Black Lives Matter. So this initiative was created, you know, using art as a tool to respond, for Black community members to be able to respond and share their thoughts, their feelings, and all that stuff going on during that time. And one of the commitments of the organization was to, like you said, not only prioritize minorities during this time, but to prioritize them all the time. So what I try to do is, because it's a year-long initiative, is to continuously engage BIPOC community members and artists throughout the year.
You're showcasing both young voices and adult voices with this celebration, which I think is also really important. Can we speak a little bit about the intergenerational aspect of your celebration?
Absolutely. So the purpose of the platform is to have a space for everyone. So we talk about age, we talk about identity. The only requirement is that you're BIPOC. That's the only requirement. And then, because I want to be able to engage as many people as possible, what I intentionally do is make sure that I ask the community, you know, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to showcase? And then just provide the support, because it's not just an entertainment platform. It's also an educational platform. It's so important to mix up the groups for the young people to be able to learn from the older to learn from the young. But literally everyone that sits in the audience can learn from the person on stage.
I love it. I love it.
I always say my mantra is celebrate, educate, empower. So you're celebrating your history, your heritage, and your culture. You're educating your counterpart, and you're empowering the one who's on stage.
Fantastic. Have the needs of the community that you're serving, or rather have what they asked for, changed over the 3 years of this festival?
Absolutely. I always say the initial idea of the platform was just, I call it a garden. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the more you plant, the more there is to actually harvest. Mm-hmm. But what I've done over the course of the years is really give the community more agency over that garden. Mm-hmm. So it's like, here's the platform. So every year I start off with, hey guys, we're back. You know, we're up again this year. What is it that you would like to see? But then also on the other side, what I do every year at the end of the season is I take an audit mm-hmm. of what worked well, what were the challenges. And I always challenge myself to actually address, you know, real things in real time. So for example, over the past 2 years, it's been very hard engaging young people and retaining them throughout the process that it takes to content build and actually make it to the stage. Whether it's scheduling with the parents, whether, you know, they do summer camp during the day and then it's late at night for them to, you know, get to rehearsals. So I had kids that were tired. They really wanted to participate, but trying to figure out a way to do it in a manner where it's healthy for them mm-hmm. and it's responsible of us as adults. So this year, one of the different things that's really near and dear to me is I created a performing arts camp solely for BIPOC kids. Mm. So this way the kids still are able to participate. They're still getting this experience, but it's also addressing a lot of real life issues that are going on. So for example, food insecurity. We know that when kids are out of school, some kids struggle with having those, you know, missing those meals. Mm-hmm. Also quality childcare. Even when we think of performing arts programs, a lot of them are mostly white students where the minority kid is usually the only one in the room. Mm-hmm. So creating this affinity space, what I did was I partnered with a local community organization that provides free lunch to the community daily, and they provide lunch for the kids. So this program, not only is it free, but they get free breakfast, free lunch. The program is free, but then also they're paid a stipend at the end for their participation. So I still want to, you know, like every other performer on the platform, honor their creativity and the time that it takes to actually put a performance together and then actually perform on a stage. So this is just a 1-week pilot camp that we're piloting actually right now. And the kids, they're coming together and they're devising an original play with the support of a professional director, music director, and a professional choreographer, along with a teaching artist. So right now they're creating their own piece. They will in turn have a showcase where they perform for the public and their families this Friday.
That's wonderful. I'm speaking with Sharron Frazier-McClain, who is helming this celebration of Black voices at Barrington Stage, starting on Thursday, going through Saturday. Do you have plans to expand that summer camp? Plans to expand it to be like longer or do more with it?
With the summer camp, we were only able to take 12 participants. So I had a lot of parents that were reaching out that wanted their kids to participate, but we learned that, parents already had summer vacations planned and things like that.
Right.
So as I thought about this experience and how to expand it and better serve the students, we thought about a leadership model. So the program is potentially building future teaching artists. So what's going to happen is this group of kids, they're going to be invited back for a winter session that takes place during winter break when school is out. And then a third session that will take place, because this is actually, like I said, a pilot program. I'm looking to use it as a model to build leadership in young people as we start to think about the next generation of teaching artists. This cohort that we have now, they will be returning for a second session that will take place during winter break when school's out. And then a third session that will take place during spring break when school is out again. So again, now the parents have childcare, the kids will have access to healthy meals and things like that. But each session they come back, they're going to be expanding on the skills that they're being taught the previous session. So this first one is more like an introduction to devised theater and performing. And then ultimately the goal is by the end of the third round, they're already at a point of peer-to-peer mentoring and taking more of a leadership role in creating the piece, because the goal is ultimately to start to spark interest and start building that next generation of BIPOC teaching artists.
So cool. You have done this festival as a 1-day festival, as a 5-day festival, and this year is a 3-day festival. Is there a certain sweet spot in the number of days that makes this work?
I'm tired.
Look, that's facts. That's facts, and that's very real. And that affects a lot of things. So you know what? Like, that answer is incredibly valid. We're making space for it.
No, but to be honest, it started, like you said, as a 5-day. It was a lot. And especially, I'm going to be honest too, is the cost, creating that space is very expensive, and all of the money is great. I receive a lot of grants and, donor contributions. For it to be feasible, it just made more sense to do the 6 events over the course of 4 days. So that way, when you think about also to people scheduling, it's harder to get a crowd of people to come out on a work night than it is to come out on a weekend. Right. So Thursday to Sunday works really well, because think about it. When we were clubbing, the weekend starts on Thursday.
Right.
So really, it just made sense as the years went on, keep the same number of events, but shorten the number of days. And it actually helps with the commitment of people, because one of the things that I do like to do is I call all the dollars raised, I call them Black dollars, where we hire local community members to come and actually fill the roles. So, the ushers, there are no true volunteers. The ushers, the people that set up and tear down, security, and all of that, they're all people that are being paid for their contributions to making this happen. I try to be mindful of people's actual ability to commit to long-term things. And it just made sense this way.
Have you seen changes in either the programming or general community involvement at Barrington Stage since the development of this festival?
Yes. What I love about the festival is I call it an entry point into the organization. Ultimately, the organization on the flip side, on the DEIA side that I also work on, is truly integrating our space for minorities to feel like they are welcome and that they have ownership of the space also. So there's 2 things. So there's this platform where it's like a meet them where they are, get to know them, start to highlight their talents and their gifts to show not only our organization, but all of the arts and culture organization who's here. Because a lot of the time we do outsource, we look to New York City a lot for the talent, but not recognizing who's already here and our responsibility to the community that we actually live in and serve. So one of the things that I do love is that once people are introduced via the platform, my commitment is to create a pipeline into the organization. So I have people that have done multiple things within the organization now, whether they've done shows, whether they've came on. My music director has done some accompaniment for the show, for auditions and things like that. I have people that started on the platform that have actually acted in some shows or simply end up working seasonally at Barrington. So now it's like when opportunities come up and we have positions available, we have this pool of people who are local that we can tap into first. And then that helps our local communities. It's really community building through the art.
That is so cool. And we've talked around it enough. You should tell us about what actually happens at this celebration of Black voices. What actually happens over the course of these 3 days?
We always start with a kickoff concert with Brown Skin Band out of Syracuse. And I say that sets the tone for the festival. It's truly a celebration. It's a everyone welcome, under this tent with no barriers. The first year there was a fence that was put up, and it kept people out. People didn't know they were welcome. So it's such a welcoming environment that you will see joy. I love to say Black joy. Mm-hmm. Because there aren't a lot of things solely for the Black community, especially being a Black community member myself, bringing back that old school feeling of like a unity vibe, a united front in a comfortable manner. A lot of the times we unite under tragedy. We got to get together because we need to boycott or we need to picket and things like that. But this is just, we're getting together to laugh, to dance, to celebrate, to have a good time. And that's truly what the whole celebration of Black Voices Festival is. It's allowing these artists a platform to be heard, but also allowing the audience, especially Black audience members, to have something that they can feel and relate to in a genuine and authentic manner versus having to find their place somewhere. A lot of the times, a lot of the art here is catered more towards, the predominantly white population because that's what their patron base looks like. Right. So to authentically be able to go into a space and be yourself and to show that, I always tell everyone this work for me is legacy building, for my kids, mm-hmm. for them to be able to see positivity, to be able to see unity, and to have a creative way to interact with one another. So to be able to foster and build that space every year, it grows in a manner of the people feeling like, wow, finally somebody gets it. Somebody's truly listening to us. And I always respond, yeah, I'm listening because I asked, and I'm doing simply what you said, using the resources to produce exactly what it is that you asked for. And I think with that, I tell everybody, this is how you build trust, within the minority community, because trust is the basis of all healthy relationships. And then once we start to do that, and they start to get to know who you are and know that you are actually someone who's trying to support them and uplift them, then they're going to freely walk into your spaces because you're in relationship. Mm. So I always say my goal is intentional relationship building.
Is there something that you were not able to incorporate into the programming this year that you would really love to get incorporated in next year's celebration?
So one of the things that we've tried last year was taking a look outside of the performing piece, taking an assessment of the Black community and what their needs are. And one of the things that I spoke about with my co-producer, Mel Powers, was that it's so important for Black people to vote. It's so important for us to have a seat at the table, for our voices to be heard. So when decisions are being made on our behalf, they're being made with our voice considered. So we attempted to do voter registration last year at the festival. We had a goal of simply 5 people, which we did reach that goal. But I think for us, even this year and moving forward, is to spend more time educating the community members about the importance of voting and having your voice heard in your community.
Thank you so much for taking this time with me, Sharron Frazier-McClain, who is the Community Engagement and EDI Coordinator for Barrington Stage. Her celebration of Black Voices starts tomorrow with a concert at 6 p.m. And again, it sounds like the best cookout, and y'all have been invited, so go. The events are free.
Thank you so much. That's right.
Full disclosure, Barrington Stage Company is an underwriter of NEPM. And quick correction, I had her position wrong during the whole interview, and she was kind enough to correct me. So she is the Associate Director of Community Engagement and DEIA Coordinator for Barrington Stage Company. Up next, we'll find out why aspirational and brawl were trending at our dictionary in Springfield. We'll talk with Ammon Shea from Merriam-Webster.
You're listening to the Fabulous 413 on NEPM.
Time for one last word nerd segment.
Don't say last.
For now, with our self-described Ersatz word nerd, And Merriam-Webster defines ersatz as being a usually artificial and inferior substitute or imitation. For those who were concerned that we were calling Ammon Shea ersatz on the radio, we do want to remind the listener and or the management here that was Ammon Shea's definition of himself.
Oh my gosh, the shade. Anyway.
But we're so glad to have you back because Ammon Shea from our Fair Dictionary in Springfield, Massachusetts, is, amongst other things for Merriam-Webster, keeping an eye on words that are trending. And some of the words that have been trending this week have been less depressing, I think, than some other weeks that we've had you on, Ammon.
I feel like we got kind of a lighter sandwich with Ammon, where like on the ends where are things that are kind of delightful.
Yeah.
Like polemic and the words from this week. And then in the middle was just this depression.
Yeah.
This creamy depression center.
We get kind of dystopian spikes sometimes with our words.
That tracks.
It really depends on what's going on.
That tracks.
Well, I think one of the words that really spiked was aspirational. Last Sunday, I think Donald Trump's lawyer was appearing on numerous television shows, and he made the argument that Donald Trump was being aspirational when he asked, I think it was Mike Pence, to not certify the election, which many other people have characterized as an illegal action.
Hold on one second. That was an aspirational ask. He's entitled to petition even state government, but that doesn't involve an obstruction of federal government.
And so Donald Trump's lawyer said that this was an aspirational act. And so I think a lot of people kind of came to the dictionary at that point to see what aspirational means. And, that's reasonable, I think, and we define it as of, relating to, or characterized by aspiration, which of course raises the question of what aspiration is. And in this case, it likely means it's a strong desire to achieve something high or great. So you can say, I have aspirations towards this thing, or etc. Aspiration, though, it does have a number of other meanings, which could be confusing to people, such as it's the act of breathing,
Right.
especially breathing in.
It's like respiration.
Breathing
But
out.
from the other
And
end.
It's an audible breath that accompanies or comprises the speech sound. And the reason for this is that aspiration, well, it comes, as many words in English do, it comes from Latin. And in part, it comes from the Latin word spirare, which means to breathe. And spirare, it serves, interestingly enough, and I should say, usually when you hear somebody talking about etymology and they say, interestingly enough, it's a good cue to leave the conversation. It's pretty much never going to actually be interesting. But in this case, I think maybe it is, because spirare serves as the root for a number of other words in English, such as inspire, transpire, and unfortunately enough, in this case, it's part of the root of conspire.
Those spires. I love the word aspiration, usually, and now I look less favorably upon
many
it,
bread
given the
building.
current context. So, but that's an interesting reason for people to go look it up.
Blue moon was also a trending word because there were a number of news stories about how we're going to have one of these in August. And in this case, it's a blue moon is the second full moon in a calendar month, and we're going to be having one of those on August 30th. This is a use of the word that's been around since the early 20th century. But before this, blue moon did have other meanings. And the earliest use of blue moon, going back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, was people used to sometimes just talk about a moon that was blue. And some dictionaries, such as the OED, do define that a moon which is or appears to be blue. But there was also another sense of blue moon, which was something that happens very infrequently, which actually comes well before the actual one referring to a specific moon. And, it's the temporal sense of blue moon. It's kind of like it's early 19th century. And I just found a citation from a book called St. Leonard's Forest, which was, I was just feeling myself jolly, as I might say, and you tell me, Jeremy, you must go and I must sit down and drink till a blue moon. And so, not an entirely set semantic function, but it was generally something which happened infrequently or which happened rarely.
And also not encourageable behavior. Don't drink until blue moon.
No.
Right. Note to listeners, don't
Right.
drink. And so that's been around well before we actually started referring to the double moon in the month.
Really? So it was used as this sort of more poetic thing previous to the idea that there were two full moons in a month.
Yes, and that it seems to have been something that came up in in London first is where it came from. It was kind of just maybe not poetic as much as kind of colloquial or slang.
Well, I mean, there's also the idea, like there's the old country songs about Blue Moon being something that makes you feel sad. When you are sad, you are encompassing you saw me standing alone without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own, that kind of idea. But when did Blue Moon for 2 full moons in a month come into common use?
I think it was about 1937 or so.
Oh, really recently?
Wow, so that is pretty recent. And the other thing to keep in mind is if you want to say once in a blue moon, which means rarely, according to NASA, blue moons are not all that rare. On average, there'll be one blue moon at least every 2.5 years. So
yeah, NASA is always spoiling the fun. That's kind of their unspoken role, it seems.
I mean, I was
shameless plug, Katie Coleman, astronaut from NASA, will be on our show on Monday.
And she's going to spoil someone's fun, I can tell right now.
Those scientists, they're always spoiling everything.
Not like those madcap lexicographers out there who say, yeah, if it feels good, do it.
I love
Say
that.
it. Go ahead.
Oh,
Words mean what you want them to mean.
And we're speaking with one of those madcap lexicographers now,
Speaking
Ammon
of people
Shea.
from whom you should run when they start saying, well, actually.
Well, actually, another fun. Well, there are fun elements to this word. It's ultimately not a very fun occasion, but there is a word that has been trending this week that I think many people have been hearing about.
And of course, we should preface this by saying, under no conditions do we ever condone violence.
Yes.
But a lot of people have been looking up the word brawl lately. And it because of a kind of dockside brawl that attracted a lot of attention and subsequent memes, in which some people were on a boat and the other people on a boat needed to put their boat where that first boat was, and the first boat didn't want to move, and there was a kind of brawl that resulted, and people seem to be very excited about this brawl.
Hard not to think it was a racially charged brawl in Montgomery, Alabama.
I think we can say it was a racially charged brawl pretty safely.
Some assumptions can be made about that. Also, key point of information, like the larger boat was, I do believe, either city-sanctioned or state-sanctioned riverboat tour. So the one side of this are all people working.
Right. Somebody who was supposed to be there working. They are supposed to
chartered and timed trips to come into the dock, and other people in a smaller pontoon who just didn't want to move.
The more meme-worthy aspects of this have to do with the tossing of a hat into the air.
A chair.
The arrival of a chair. The desperate swimming across some sort of canal to enter the melee. And my favorite meme about this so far is people that reenacted the brawl at their pool party.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I can't stop watching it.
That last one I was not aware of.
Oh, my God. I'll show it to you right after. It's too much.
My favorite so far has been the gentleman on TikTok who rewrote words to the Black National Anthem for this particular incident.
Lift every chair and swing.
Tell us how Merriam-Webster defines brawl, Ammon Shea.
Well, first I want to say that I really like the arrival of a chair as a description.
Yes.
But we define brawl both as a verb and as a noun. So as a verb, it just means to quarrel or fight noisily or to make a loud, confused noise. But as a noun, as in this case, it's a noisy quarrel or fight, and also a loud, tumultuous noise. Quite honestly, I don't think people use the noise sense nearly as often as they use the fight sense.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's nice about English is that we have this incredible richness, and there are many, many synonyms for brawl.
Yes.
Both as a verb and as a noun. And some of these are really kind of lovely and little used. And so if you have a brawl coming up in the future and you want to come up with a new word, I mean, there's Donnybrook and fisticuffs and spat. Scrap is always a nice one, is wrangle or ruckus. Ruckus always has a nice word.
Bring the ruckus.
Bring the ruckus.
People like ruckus. I like ruction, which is similar to
ruction.
Yeah.
And some of them they kind of go from disputation to battle royale. You can have some French if you want to have a little Gallic flair. There's contretemps. Rhubarb, which is a kind of little used one these days, I have to say.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.
said the Joker in the 1989 Tim Burton Batman movie, but doesn't quite fit in this regard, but comes pretty close.
And if you want to use one that's more like a verb, I think argufy as a nice kind of sound.
Argufy is beautiful.
It is, and one who argufies is, perhaps unsurprisingly, an argufier. And we don't hear that word nearly often enough.
No.
It should be said that argufy does apply mostly to verbal disputes and not those involving a chair.
Or a hat tossed into the air.
You know, I do have to say that the riches of the English language are seemingly inexhaustible, but I did spend a fair amount of time this morning looking in every dictionary I could find to see if there was a word meaning to hit someone with a chair. And we do not have such a word.
There's no chair equivalent of defenestration.
Yeah, right. To push out a window, right?
Yeah.
No, there's not. But, you know, as the linguists would often argue, you know, the fact that we do not have a word for it just means that you put together a bunch of words and you talk about hitting someone with a chair. And that's what's so delightful about language, is that you don't need to have a single word. You can just talk about the appearance of a chair. A chair appeared. You know, and you're still conveying the broad and even the specific kind of concept that you were going for there. And so we don't need to have a single word to convey this idea. We just need to stitch them together, and you really know what we're talking about.
So my campaigns to make concheration should maybe stop.
You can still do that too. I mean, I think 1 word or 5 words, we're still getting the picture in our heads. Everybody knows what kind of chair we're talking about and what the chair is doing.
We know what face planting is. What about face seating? This is how the language evolves.
I mean, I have said to people, sit your face down.
Yeah.
I also love that brawl does so many things at once. Like, it's a verb, it's a noun, it's automatopoetic. It sounds like what it does.
It makes you want to roar. Melee, I love that word, and I think I used that even in my description of what happened in Montgomery, Alabama. But I don't know if this rises to the level of melee in regards to Merriam-Webster's definition of that word, Ammon Shea?
If you want it to, I think it does.
I think so then it does.
Well, I mean, we do list melee as a synonym of brawl. You know, and I don't think you can ever say that any 2 words are exactly synonymous, because words tend to have connotations and denotations. They have kind of extended meanings. They have meanings that are particular to the person that is using them. But I think that melee and brawl have significant semantic overlap.
Ammon Shea, it has been a delight having you as our Ersatz word nerd. I think that you calling yourself that just shows your level of humility, but you have been an excellent substitute word nerd for these past few weeks for Emily Brewster, and I hope this won't be the last time we talk, and I hope we talk frequently about the words that are trending in the dictionary, because it's an awful lot of fun.
As do I. It's been a pure delight to be here.
Double Wu-Tang Day.
Yeah, we had a lot of Wu-Tang because, they were bringing the ruckus in that melee, in that brawl. Yesterday, you may have caught us at Tanglewood on Parade. A quick follow-up, because we ended at our usual time, and then we were wanting to meet John Williams.
We did not get to meet John Williams.
It was a high hope that we'd get John Williams on, that Keith Lockhart, the current Pops conductor, might interview John Williams with us, but to no avail. However,
we did get to see John Williams.
And it was amazing.
It was amazing.
For a 91-year-old guy who's arguably one of the most important musicians of the last 100 years, to still be putting his all out there.
And still making stuff, like Keith Lockhart was saying.
He keeps unretiring himself. They're like, they're making 3 more Star Wars movies?
I'm in.
Yeah.
They've got a whole other Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Are you sure you want to keep making Indiana Jones? I'll keep making these scores.
So we did get to see him up close. It was wonderful. It was wonderful to spend time there at Tanglewood. And hopefully you got to hear the show, because I thought we had a great chat with Keith Lockhart and some of the folks from the BSO.
It was really, real cool.
We also got to see the young conductor conducting in front of the audience. And the way the way that he was received by the orchestra and the audience was really inspirational to see. And we have a little bit of a BSO musical treat as we give you our outro here. But tomorrow on the Fabulous 413, what's more American than beer?
I can think of several things, but the art of Norman Rockwell is right up there.
This Saturday at the Norman Rockwell Museum in Stockbridge is the return of the Art of Brewing Festival.
And we'll hear all about it Thursday on the Fabulous 413.
Plus, we'll learn how a South Deerfield farm is bringing a little more food security to the city of Holyoke. Oh, there it is.
And McGoverning with Congressman Jim McGovern. Got a question for him? You can email the fab413 at nepm.org. We're going to talk once again about his poorly named Plant Act, but why it's potentially doing some good things for farmers in our area.
Our director is Tony, still on Plague Watch done.
Our engineer is Betsy. It's not in there, Langto.
Our technical team is Bart. He's not here. Rankin, Kara, Copod, Conspirator, Foster, and Punk Rude Boy Dubé. Special shout out to Graham, soon-to-be International Man of Mystery Griffith.
Thanks to Spouse, Happy Valley Guitar Orchestra, Supertramp, Fanny, Courtney Barnett, The Beatles, NBC's Meet the Press, Elvis Presley, Curtis Mayfield, Wu-Tang Clan, Trey Forte on TikTok, and the BSO for letting us record this during their rehearsal yesterday.
I'm Khalees Smith.
I'm Monte Belmonte.
See you tomorrow on the Fabulous 413.